Well, welcome to the Real Journeys of Success podcast. And you know what? I've gone all around the world. I've gone all over Sydney, all over Australia. This time I'm going to a place I've never been. It's called Tampa Bay, somewhere in the States. We're going to find out where it is. Welcome to the show, Megan Jordon. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Now, before we get into it, for our international guests, where are you?
Oh, I'm in the lovely state of Florida in the United States. We are a large town, like a large city in Florida on the West Coast. So we border the Gulf of Mexico.
Wow. And have you always grown up there?
I actually a lot of people from Tampa or who live in Tampa now are transplants from the north because it's too cold and they're just kind of like, screw it, I don't want to shovel snow anymore. But I was actually born and raised in Tampa. I'm one of the very few Tampanians, as we call ourselves.
Tampanians,
yep.
Oh dear.
So yep, born and raised.
So you know the place better than anybody.
I was talking to I had a new client call this morning, and I was talking to her about how I know these streets like the back of my hand. I know all the cut throughs to get around Don Mabry, all that kind of fun stuff. The history of all the buildings. I grew up in real estate, so I've been tagging along with my mom forever. So
fantastic. Yeah. Well, we will get into how you ended up in real estate and one of the top brokers in Tampa Bay. But before we get that, were you good at school or did you sit at the back and hide?
I never hide. So that was never, but was I good at school? I was not good at school, but I was really good at networking and making friends and asking them to copy their homework. So I got good grades, but a lot of it was not my own work. I'm really good at taking tests and using deductive reasoning, but I am not a big fan I'm not a school person. I do not enjoy homework. I don't enjoy sitting still for long periods of time. I have no desire to go back to school.
You know what, Megan? A lot of the successful people I've interviewed are exactly the same.
Really?
School was never for them. It wasn't something that made them want to learn. It actually was boring for them, and they got into trouble. Yes. And they did what you did, got other people to do their homework.
Yep.
And, but they're super successful.
It's a surprise to us all,
So they didn't kick you out of school. You managed to get through high school. Now you've gone and you've done a marketing and psychology degree. What were you thinking?
I was thinking I wanted to stay in school for longer. I went to a really good high school in South Tampa called Plant High School, and I graduated with AP credits, and I got an academic scholarship to Florida State University, and part of the scholarship was that you had to take, I think it was like 15 credit hours per semester, and then like a full load is 12. So with the credits I was coming in with and the credits I had to keep up, I was set to graduate in 3 years, and I did not want to do that because I was having a lot of fun at Florida State. So I just tacked on a psychology major because I really enjoy the way that people think. I think it's fascinating. I had no idea what I wanted to do, and felt like marketing is pretty universal. And I started thinking about, when I was in school, being either a high school counselor or doing like consumer behavior analysis by combining the marketing and psychology degrees. But when I was looking into the consumer behavior analysis, I'd spent a lot of time in front of the computer, and I was already struggling with that, just doing schoolwork. So I figured maybe that's not the call for me. And then I started looking into grad schools to be a high school counselor, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to do that. But I'm an extremely debt adverse. I'm one of the very few and lucky people who graduated college with no debt. And I didn't want to take on a ton of debt if I wasn't sure that's what I wanted to do with my life. So I just graduated. I got a job at a recruitment firm after college called Aerotech. And I was there for 3 months. And I basically got pulled into their office, and I was told to find a job I was better at. It was not that. And my mom kind of gave me the idea of, hey, you should get your real estate license. It's one of those smart things to have. I don't know the way it is in Australia, but in the States, if you say you have your real estate license and you refer me a client, you get 25% of my commission. And so
Wow.
she's like, it's just one of those good things to have, just as residual income, no matter what you do. And I got it, and I did the course, and I loved it. And so that's.
So were your parents in real estate, or was it just something that they knew you could be really good at?
So I did not know. I grew up swearing I would never do it. I grew up with my mom's been in real estate.
Yeah.
Probably since I was like 10 or so.
Yeah.
She sold airtime for a local news channel before that. And then she always kind of had a hankering for real estate. And so she switched her careers, and I started tagging along with her to open houses and showings and things of that sort. And I'd hear her on the phone at all hours of the night. And I just said, oh my God, like, people are insane. I will never do that ever, ever, ever.
It'll probably interrupt your social life.
Yeah, a little bit, you know. If I ask for rides places, like I have a showing, and I'm like, it's fine, I'll figure out, you know, ride my bike or do whatever to get there. But like my dad's in sales also. So it's kind of in my blood to do sales. And so I had a feeling that's where I would end up, because I really enjoy talking to people and getting to know people. And I just didn't know it was going to be down the avenue of real estate. But the more I learned about it, the more I was like, this is a really powerful tool for people to change their lives. I think that's really cool.
So now you own your own brokerage, but before that, did you work for your parents' brokerage, or did you go and work for someone else?
Yes. So when I first got my real estate license, I think I was 22. And my mom works with Keller Williams, which is a large brokerage in the United States here, and she has her team there. So I got my license and went with Keller Williams and hung it there. And then I started working with these investors, and they're buying homes in South Tampa to renovate and keep and rent them out. And they sold their international shipping company to FedEx and made boatloads of money. And they were like, we need to open up a property management firm ourselves, and will you get your broker's license and help us do it? So I got my broker's license when I think I was 24, and helped them open up a small firm in South Tampa called Plant Property Management, and did that for about 2 years. And then after 2 years, figured out that I am not a property management person.
They're unique individuals.
The unique individuals, very much so. I really thrive by like getting to know people and helping people. And I feel like in property management, a lot of times, no matter what you do, you're kind of the bad person. And that for me is soul sucking.
Yes.
Because like my big why is helping people. And so I did that for 2 years and resigned from that, and then went back to Keller Williams. But it had always been my goal to open up my own brokerage. And so I just took this leap of faith and opened up Beta Bay in 2019. And here I am. So
you're a young lady, 4 or 5 years real estate experience, but not all of it in sales. And you turn around to your parents and you tell everyone, I'm going to open my own.
Yeah.
I mean, kudos to you. Fantastic. What were some of the early challenges you had when you said, what am I doing? I mean, I don't have a bucket load of money. I don't have an office. I have nothing. How did you get started, and who was it that actually showed a bit of faith in you to help you along the way?
Oh my God. Everyone thought I was insane. Except for my husband. Let me just preface it with that. I'm like a spiritual person, and I think that when doors open, like you should take doors open for a certain reason, and you should walk through the door and see what happens. Like I am a big believer in that. So I decided, my husband and I were trying to have a kid, and I knew this was going to be my ultimate goal. And I had heard through the grapevine that kids are kind of hard and time consuming and all that fun stuff. So when him and I were talking, I was just of the mindset of, if I want to do this, I should do this now and take this leap of faith now. Before we have more financial responsibilities, before we have a child, before we do all these things. And I know myself, I'm not going to stop thinking, obsessing, and reaching for this goal until I actually try.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I just kind of took that leap of faith and tried, and it's all worked out.
All worked out. So
thank God.
I'll ask you a similar question that I asked the gentleman who was the front of a band. So you've opened your first brokerage. You're all by yourself. What was it like when you got your very first listing? How did it make you feel?
Putting that sign up in front of the listing was a very surreal moment.
Yeah.
I'd always pictured it, but I didn't really know it was going to happen.
Mm.
And I always tell all my clients, whether they hire me for listing, buyer, rental, or whatever it is, that it truly is an honor to be selected to help them with this process, because
Yeah.
it's a huge amount of money. It's a huge decision, and there's
Yeah.
5 million realtors for every human being out there.
Yeah.
So just knowing that someone was taking this leap of faith with me and had saw that I was a good human being, that I knew what I was doing, that I was speaking the truth, and that I was going to fight for them, and they believed in it, meant more than I could even say. That was probably, when people frame their first dollar on.
Yes.
I felt like it was one of those moments,
Awesome. So who did you call first, your mum or your hubby?
My hubby, definitely my hubby. My husband, we've been best friends since we were 15, and he goes along with all my crazy schemes. He's so incredibly supportive. And his whole thing is as long as you're happy and we're not broke, then you can do what you want. And so it's a good mentality to have. So
the reason I asked is because if you talk to every successful person you come across, 9 out of 10 say they couldn't have done it without their partner.
Yeah.
They couldn't have done it without that person that was there to pick them up on a bad day, kick them in the butt when they haven't been doing what they shouldn't have been doing, and then celebrate the wins.
Yes. I tell my husband all the time that I'm so incredibly grateful for him, and I couldn't do what I do without him. I couldn't have a family. I couldn't have a happy marriage. The house couldn't run. I couldn't have the stability on the home front if he did not exist and if he wasn't so supportive. And I am well aware of how incredibly blessed I am.
So you're a female in a male-dominated industry, which is changing, thank goodness. You're young, you're out there. In those early days, what was your point of difference? Because you're up against, in Tampa Bay, there's a lot of agents there that have been there a long time, boys club, play golf together, go to the footy together. And here's this young blonde upstart coming around wanting to sell the homes that they've felt that they've entitled to for the last 20 years. What did you do different? Because you are very successful.
Not only was I trying to sell the homes that they were selling, I was challenging them on their views and their marketing ideas. I was challenging, I am very outspoken, and I don't hold anything back, especially my opinions. And so I was challenging them on a lot of fronts, making a lot of people very uncomfortable. It still is. In the beginning, the most common comment I got was, how old are you? How long have you been doing this? Who do you work for? Very degrading comments like that. And I'd always just say, that's not part of the conversation. This is not relevant to this deal whatsoever. So I'm going to move past that. And so let's get back to what we were actually talking about. But I got a lot of pushback, a lot of pushback. Yes. There's a lot of South Tampa in particular, there's a lot of generations of money. Families that lineages have been here for years. The parents have gone to the same high school that their grandparents and great grandparents have gone to. And it's very much a small town in a big city. And so being newer on the scene, my family's from Michigan. My mom and my dad just ended up here because my mom was selling airtime for News Channel 8.
Yep.
I don't have the same connections. I'm not part of the country club. I'm not any of those things. But I'm going around telling everyone who has even one ear about me, and what I can do and my marketing ideas and things of that sort, and why I think that their agent might not be doing the best work for them. And it kind of ruffled a few feathers.
Did you ever doubt yourself?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's normal. I think that whenever there's any kind of risk involved, there's always some kind of level of doubt. I still have fears, I have fears and I have doubts, and that fleeting, they're more fleeting now, but that thought of, what am I doing? Did I make the right decision? But they're fleeting. And I think that's the blessing in that, is that I know to my core that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And as long as I try to run my business in my life with integrity and be a good human, that everything else will fall into place.
Because salespeople by nature are confidence people. And when their confidence gets we've all had it, a kick. It's sometimes a challenge to pick yourself up. What did you do when you were at that time when it was, you've had a bad day, your confidence is shot, people have spoken to you as if you're, a 15-year-old girl, and being totally disrespectful? What did you do? How did you pull yourself back up?
So one of my favorite sayings is that I'm an egomaniac with an inferiority complex.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of salespeople can relate to that, where we put on this big front of, I truly do this to this day, like who I am and have pride in who I am. But they're definitely behind the scenes, do I know what I'm doing type thing. So in those hard days, I just try to remind myself that I've felt this way before, and this too shall pass.
Yeah.
It's just more of a mindset of just kind of resetting myself, whether it's breaking that cycle of I obsess about that kind of stuff, and I need to take myself out of the situation, whether it's working out or reading a book or going for a walk. My husband always takes me on walks, so I need to clear my head.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. But something to kind of break that chain of obsession, so I can actually look at the situation from an objective point of view of, even today, I made a mistake on a contract. And, the important part is okay, I called my client, I owned up to it. I'm trying to make it better, and I just do the best that I can. And so I just kind of remind myself that I've made mistakes before, I've had these feelings before, and this too shall pass.
And what was it like when you had the big win and you had an absolutely awesome day and you've absolutely taken listings off people who have been around forever and you've just gone, yes, I'm doing this?
It feels amazing. It feels so good. It feels amazing. There's such a sense of, I'm a very competitive person. I've played soccer since I was 4, and I still play soccer. I did CrossFit for a long time. I'm just by nature, even with Uno, I'm a very competitive person.
A normal salesperson.
Yeah. My whole family's in sales, so I come by it naturally. But in those moments, I just feel so proud of myself and so happy with my team and just my life in general. And it's just that overwhelming moment of gratitude of I am living a life beyond my wildest dreams. And it's just such a freeing present moment. And that's what keeps me going, that chase.
Yeah.
But I also have to watch out too, because if I let it go to my head, then I'm more prone to be less teachable.
Yes, I can see that, and I've been guilty of that myself. So I know what you're saying. When someone comes to you and they say they want to be a broker and they've done all their, their qualifications, and I want a job, you look back at it now, what do you look for in somebody in sales that they're going to make it, or they might be lovely, but they're not going to cut it?
Honestly, whenever I sit down with any new agents and interview them, I'm not asking necessarily about their sales or their prior experience. I'm taking a look at their heart, and I'm trying to figure out their motives. For me, there's a million realtors for every human being out there, and the people who have made it and built a longevity of their business are people who treat people kindly and don't treat it just like a transaction. When they're people focused and service focused. So that's kind of my main criteria when I interview agents is, what are your motives for doing this? Obviously, money is part of it. I'm not gonna lie and say I would do this for free, because I also have a family to support and things of that sort. But I'm doing it because I want to be of service, and I am people focused. And so if someone's just purely transaction and numbers driven, that's probably not my first go-to for an agent. I might have a conversation with them.
Do you find the ones that are transactional focused, they might start off good, but they're never there for the long term? They're in, out, gone.
Yes, because real estate is very much the industry where it builds upon itself. And, my business is referrals at this point. I've done well by my clients and they refer me out. So my business just grows upon itself. When you're transaction based, you're flying through them and you're not actually getting referred. That's been my experience, at least.
If a young girl came to you now in their 20s and said, I want to go into real estate, what would you tell her?
I tell them that there's no better decision that they can make. Starting
Why
off young is the best. I think starting off young in real estate is how to be successful. I tell them that the first few years, I think the first year in real estate I made $20,000. but each year it's gotten better and better and better. And so start when you're young, take the chances when you're young, and see if you actually like it. And if not, you still have your real estate license and you can refer me a client and you can get 25% of my commission. This is the conversation I have.
You think a lot of kids, and I don't mean that word bad, but a lot of young people don't take enough risks and don't back themselves enough these days?
I really think that's absolutely true. I think a large part of it is student debt that my generation has incurred. Like, they have hundreds of dollars in student loans that they now have to pay. And so they feel like they have to have more of like a 9-to-5 stable job in order to, because they have more debt.
Boring.
Yeah. And so and I get that fear. That's why I'm, like I said earlier, like, I'm incredibly blessed by the fact that I was able to graduate college with no student debt. So I can afford to be a little bit more ballsy. I can like fiscally afford it. And my husband was the same. Like, we both graduated with no student debt. And so we were able to do things younger versus some other people. But starting early and taking chances when you're young I think that's the best thing that you could do.
What would you say if you look at, there would still be brokerages around you now that have been around forever and are doing it the same way they've always done it, because that's the way their father told them to do it, and that's how we do it here in Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
What's one or two of the things that your brokerage does different to them that cuts you out to make you different? Because as you said, there's 101 realtors out there, but you are successful. So there is obviously something your team are doing that the others aren't, that would really make them cranky, but they just don't know how to do it.
I think that a lot of the bigger brokerages that have been around for a long time have a lot more red tape in regards to marketing and things of that sort versus us. So we're able to be more creative with marketing and getting our properties out there.
Yep.
I also think that, and I'm going to keep on saying this so I'm blue in the face, but being client focused. I feel like that's more of a new age thing sometimes, where it shouldn't be, but I think that it is, of being purely client focused versus just transactional focused with red tape and like, here's the checklist of all the things you have to do, but having actually the more human face-to-face conversations of, hey, let's meet for a drink and like, let's talk through this type scenario. I think that's kind of it.
Do you think a lot of the younger ones that you go out to dinner and you'll see 4 or 5 sitting at a table and they've got their head buried in their phone? So how are they ever going to learn face-to-face and the art of conversation when that's all they've ever done?
I worry about that also, not just with like, and I'm part of that generation. Like, if you see me at a restaurant, like, I might be working on my phone, like I might be responding to a text, like I'm victim of that. Like, I do that too. But even with my toddler, he's a COVID baby and he wasn't in daycare for a long time and he didn't have as much social interactions, and parks were closed and things of that sort. And so I think that the lack of social interaction is going to affect a few generations.
It is,
yeah, absolutely. There's definitely been some younger agents that I've dealt with who I will call to have like a conversation with, and they text me back or they email me back, and it's like, that drives me nuts because anyone who knows me knows I hate texting. I hate texting. I'm not good at it. I do voice memos because I'm always driving. It's just not efficient, and I'm all about efficiency.
Yes.
And that kind of drives me nuts because I feel like sometimes when you're not having the face-to-face conversations or even over the phone, like the voice-to-voice conversations of, hey, this is what's going on. These are the motives behind my client. This is the thought process. Like, what do you think about it?
Yeah.
It's going to come across very different in text. And I think that people are very scared to pick up the phone.
Yes.
Because they haven't done that in the past, and they've gotten so used to texting and things of that sort. And so that's a big hurdle with a lot of newer agents where they'll call and they're like, well, I text the agent, he's not responding, like, or he's being rude or she's being rude. I'm like, you need to call them.
I spoke to a young guy that works with us and I asked him about dating. And he went, I said, we used to talk across a bar, have a couple of drinks and, go and talk to someone we liked. He said, well, we don't do that. And I said, so what do you do? He said, we go on online dating. I said, so it's just like texting, but they go on online dating. So they don't necessarily have to talk to them. I said, so what happens when you meet? And he went, he looked at me blank.
They don't meet.
They don't meet. And if they do, it's a very short conversation because they can't talk.
I would fail miserably at online dating, and I am so grateful that I never had to do that because I can't even imagine. Online dating is like a new thing. Like, I don't know how my kid's going to do it.
But it's a great example about how they think business is conducted.
Yeah.
They go to work, they do it via email or Teams chat.
Mm-hmm.
They text, they don't talk.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get very uncomfortable when someone starts to have a conversation, starts to ask some questions face to face. And you can tell by the body language, they're gone.
Yeah.
So where do you see with real estate now, what's going to be the next best thing? Where do you see it going? I mean, they've had many people come out with some crazy ideas on how to sell. We've got 3D tours. We've got Instagram now. Is TikTok going to be the new way to sell a house? And these days, in the old days, they turned up, they didn't know anything about the house. Now they can walk up and tell you the square feet, when it was built, what it was sold for.
Oh, I know. And those I don't know if you have Zillow in Australia, but those estimates are going to be the death of me.
Yeah.
It's like basically like Zillow's estimate of value and things of that sort. Yeah.
We've all seen
these
that.
days are more educated than ever. 100%. We're more educated than ever. I think that we're seeing a huge rise in TikTok as far as lead generation.
Yep.
I think that as far as selling houses, though. So, do you have Zillow in Australia?
No, but we have something very similar.
Okay. So Zillow just came out a few months ago with like their own agent platform, basically, and it folded because they were buying up houses and they just kind of went under. They bought too high. They were going off their own estimates. And the CEO even mentioned that like, hey, his estimates aren't accurate.
Yeah.
And I think that people are seeing more and more the value. Let me take that back. I think it's kind of split. I think some people are seeing more and more the value of realtors, of like knowing the local market value and things of that sort, especially when statements like, okay, these estimates can't be trusted, like everything that you're reading, like you need some professional help are made. But then I also see people who are like, well, we sold a house before, we know what we're doing. Like, we don't need a realtor.
And they never sell.
They never sell. And they also never buy because they don't know how to write a contract. They don't know, like right now we're seeing a lot of escalation clauses, appraisal gaps, things of that sort that historically, like I never used in a contract because it was never needed. And so unless I'm up to date on how contracts are changing and the verbiage is changing, I'm not going to write that in for myself if I'm not aware of it. So I'm going to be losing out deals over and over and over and over again. So I think that social media is going to be a large part of lead generation. But I still think that realtors are going to be around. I still think that our knowledge of the industry, of how to write contracts, of how to get creative, we're kind of a one-stop shop. I get asked questions all the time about the lending process, the title process, even though I'm not the lender or the title agent.
Yep.
I think that just having some hand-holding and guiding is needed.
So how does a salesperson in today's digital world build value? I mean, you do it, listening and watching you do it naturally without even thinking.
Yes, I think that we build value by knowledge. I'm very much a research-oriented person, and I'm very curious. And I'm the person at the doctor's office who wants to have an hour-long meeting with them, and I have bullet point questions, and I want to know all of the facts. So because of that, I can have an intelligent conversation with you about different loan types, the process of the loan. Same with title, like about the different sections of a title policy and all that kind of stuff. So I provide value in that way where I'm the trusted source because I've built that rapport with them. And rather than calling their lender who they can't get on the phone, they know that they can call me and get an accurate answer. And I'm very upfront. If I don't know the answer, like I will find out because I want to know. Like I want to be of value to the next person who asks me that same conversation.
I think you're right there. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. You do build value by knowledge.
Yes.
100%. And I think a lot of people have forgotten that art.
It's not all about just posting pretty photos and answering texts. It's about being a source of knowledge and comfort also.
And sometimes you don't get the sale with that person, but they refer you to someone that ends up being a big fish.
I always tell people, I'm like, I do not care where you buy, when you buy. I'm not paying your mortgage. That's not part of my job. But I will be here every step of the way. And as long as you are honest and open with me about your thought process and where you think this is going, like I'll support you no matter what.
So if I turn around and said to you, I've got you a lovely restaurant down at Miami, beautiful table looking out over the beach, and you can have 5 people, who are you going to have for dinner?
Do they have to be alive?
No.
Okay. I would have my grandma Annie.
Yes.
Her and I were very close growing up, and she and I are kind of kindred spirits.
Yep.
She passed when I was like 15, and so I would have her. I think I would have. God, this is a hard question.
Yeah. You know, I warned you before you came on. I don't give anyone the questions, so.
I know. I've just been spitballing this whole thing. So.
Yeah.
Okay, 5 people. I think I'd have my grandma Annie.
Yep.
I think I would have my husband because I wouldn't be there without him.
Oh, you just said that because he's going to listen to this podcast.
I know he's not even he's gonna listen. He's gonna watch this and watch my body language and just die laughing. But I would, you know. I think I would also have.
Yeah. Deep in thought for anyone who isn't watching the YouTube version of this. We've really stumped her here. Would it be an actress or a business person or a sports person that you'd always wanted to meet?
I've always wanted to meet Abby Wambach.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
This is like a girl crush on her, so I think I would invite her.
Who was that again?
Abby Wambach. She's a retired U.S. women's soccer player.
Okay. I'm glad your husband's really interested in listening to you having a girl crush on.
Oh, he knows. He's aware. I saw her speak at a woman. I volunteer with the Women's Conference of Florida, which is all about badass businesswomen. And she was a speaker there. And I came home and I was like, I love her.
Yeah.
So that's okay. So I'd probably invite her, and then I'd probably invite whoever. I don't even know who the #1 agent is in Florida.
Yeah.
You know, we're the #1 broker in Florida, because I would want to pick their brain about because I am a big fan of not reinventing the wheel. I am a fan of asking questions and learning from other people's mistakes. So I think I would like to pick their brain as well.
One more. Here we go. Drum roll.
Yeah. I think I would probably. So I've actually. This is what keeps on coming up in my head. I've been sober for about 8 years now in AA, and so I think the last person would be my sponsor, because I wouldn't. He's kind of been my advisor for 8 years and has seen me through all everything and seen the progression. So she's always a good sounding board. So I think I would also have her there.
So I've got 2 more questions.
Yeah.
When you said you've changed, you've been sober for the last 8 years, what was the biggest thing that happened in changing your life when you made that decision?
What led up to it? What?
No. You made that decision. So before and after, you knew who you were before.
Yeah.
And you know now who you are after. What is the biggest thing that changed?
So before I got sober, I knew to my core that I was a good human, but I felt like I could not unlock that potential. I just felt hopeless and desperate and suicidal and miserable. And now I feel like I can live life confidently. I take pride in who I am, and I feel like so before, when I got sober, I felt like there's this glass ceiling above me, and I knew that there's more potential for my life with relationships, with everything. And I was trying to punch through that ceiling, and I just couldn't get through it.
Yep.
And now I feel like I'm on the other side of that, and I'm living a life beyond my wildest dreams. And it's only because of AA, truly.
That's cool. Could you have been as successful as you have been if you hadn't made that choice?
Oh God, no. Absolutely not. No, I couldn't. Before I got sober, I couldn't look people in the eyes and have a conversation with them, because I was so shameful about what I was doing behind closed doors. I was sleeping in. I was erratic. I had no structure or discipline in my life. I was miserable and depressed. I had no hope to give. So why would people come to me and ask me for hope and guidance if I couldn't even give myself that?
Awesome.
So 100%, like I would not be where I am if I had not gotten sober.
Kudos to you.
Thanks.
So this question I already had in my mind before you spoke about your sobriety, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Yeah.
You've just met your 19-year-old self walking down the road. And she looks up at you and she says, doesn't know who you are. It says, Megan, you're very successful. You've got a lovely family, great husband. You're a very good business person. What one piece of advice would you give me so I can be as good as you?
Don't give up.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't give up. Actually, I would give two pieces of it. I would say don't give up and make the hard decisions.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of people are in analysis paralysis and are scared to take those leaps of faith.
Yep.
Because of the what ifs. But that's exactly what it is. It's a leap of faith. And whenever I've taken that and I've had it with the right motives, I've never been let down. And so that's
Fantastic.
what I would tell myself. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
How do people find you if they're listening to you in Tampa Bay, or someone just wants to look you up on the web? Because you've got a fantastic story.
At the local Publix. Publix is my favorite grocery store. My husband's gonna laugh at that. So you can find me. So obviously social media.
Yep.
Baby Brokerage has a Facebook page. I also have like a personal Instagram account, which is just pictures of my dogs and my child, basically.
None of the hubby?
You can follow it if you want. What'd you say?
None of the hubby?
Every once in a while.
Oh,
but mostly the dogs and the kid. So that one's like at Megan Jordon, and then we have an Instagram at Baby Brokerage. Yeah. There is I'm so hesitant to say this. We just started TikTok. It's the most awkward thing I've ever seen. I feel like I should say it exists, but you probably shouldn't watch it. But you can find me also just like around South Tampa on the soccer field at Ed Radis or at Henry Nola, in Seminole Heights at my office, or at Publix, or walking on Bayshore with my kid, or at the park.
Megan Jordon, it's been a real pleasure. I really enjoyed today's chat. I wish you all the best. And as we say at the end of every one of our podcasts, have a groovy day.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.